foundations, being Potter was one of the only ones in the grant book for individuals. I had to search for other sources, and you really have to just think outside the box and find, anything else that you can find. I'll give an example. There are societies and clubs. There's Rotary clubs, Apex clubs. There's all sorts of societies. I'm going over to the UK, so there's one called the Australia-Britain Society. And I had to just basically step in the deep end. I had to raise a huge amount of money.
How much were you able to raise locally within the community where you grew up, say in Gosford, for example?
Yeah, well, that's another avenue as well. My local community, because I've been obviously playing a lot of concerts, and a lot of people on the Central Coast of my area have followed my career since an early age, and so I started approaching them, and one way was through the local newspaper, doing an article there, when Donnelly's going over, blah, blah, blah. And that was actually really fantastic. Local support from the press. This particular example led to someone reading it, a producer at ABC Classic FM reading it, or a friend of this producer, then gave it to them, and then they rang me up and invited me to have an interview and live performance on ABC Classic FM. And that then led to some direct donors. One particular who has become a close family friend over the past 3 years, and has become a significant donor of mine. So it's very important to not underestimate how much your local community, local support can lead to, and you'll be surprised at what it can do. So those are some of the examples.
Father Arthur, you see a lot of applications, obviously, every year, and I'm just wondering what you've observed by way of the common mistakes that people make when they're applying for funding, and also what distinguishes the applications that really rise to the top and stay with you as things that you want to back.
A big mistake is people leaving their fundraising to the last minute. If you then panic and just write a one-pager saying, I'm a player of the flute and I just got a position at the Royal Academy, and will you give me $37,000 to cover my fees, I'll send you back a no and $100 consolation prize. I don't like to send anyone something empty-handed.
And I think another important thing when applying for grants is to, I know it sounds a little bit silly, but be genuine, and with the project that you're doing, ideally it should be something that you're already doing, not so much something to fit the actual grant guidelines. But I once applied for a grant to my foundation. We did get it. It was for a regional project, because I actually come from a sort of semi-regional area, which is the Central Coast. And it was a concert with a viola colleague of mine. We called it Viola-Rama. It was a really fun concert. And anyway, we basically said, okay, we've got marketing costs. We're not going to get anything, but it would be great if we can cover those marketing costs. But it's going to happen anyway, so that's another important thing.
But did you say, at that point, did you leave it too late, or were you within the sort of time frame that Father Arthur was just talking about?
Well, that one was actually, it was a couple of months before, actually.
That sounds a bit like short notice to me.
It was very, very much short notice, but this is an example of, I think, where it's important, to be genuine and not something where if we don't get this funding, it's not going to happen, because that's, they can then think it's going to be, it's not very genuine, and it's that they need support, and it's looking a bit shaky, the whole project. So
other mistakes?
One little mistake Glen did make. I shouldn't say this on his birthday, should I? And I'm going to. If you are thinking of studying, for example, outside Australia, like where he went to study, the Royal Academy, if you do your homework really well in advance, you will discover that if you present yourself for a personal audition at the November-December period, then you are likely to get a scholarship from the college. If you send a tape in at any time during the year, you'll probably get a little, but not as much as you would like. You have to really know what are the parameters of the institution or organisation that you are applying for, because there is a lot more money to be had outside of Australia than inside of it. The other thing which is important is that how you present your presentation to the person giving you the money. I have taken the view that if you give enough time to, say, someone like myself to help you, I often fly people from all over Australia to where I live, in Sydney, sit down with them and show them how to put the package together. Well, there's a very famous case of a young guy we supported, Gerarda, in London, who needed to raise $150,000. And the presentation was the factor that won it over, not just with the foundations and trusts, but with individuals, and that spurred it along. So you need a good run-in your preparation to know where you're going, how that works, that institution works financially, and your presentation has to really be a good one. It has to stand out, and above all, the thing that he did, he's spoken about it, is be bold and persistent.
And go and visit people as well.
And Carol, can I just say from where we sit with the Cultural Trust, I mean, we get hundreds of applications a year, and I suppose, you know, what makes a good application, one, it must be submitted on time, but I mean, obviously it's the person's CV, it's their references, that they get the right references. I disagree a little bit with Glen. I think that people in the budget, they must be realistic and actually they need to ask for what they do need. We look at them they have to make their own contribution and getting partnership funding. But I think the things that need to come through, you know, the passion, the applications need to be concise, but they need to show the passion and say to the funder, you know, I mean, choose me, you know, I have all these skills, but this passion.
It's more easy. It's much easier, though, isn't it, to have passion in person? I mean, if you're going to see Father Arthur and you're having a conversation about, you know, why pick me, it's so much harder to have passion sometimes on paper.
Well, that's right. And I mean, I say we get hundreds of applications in, but for us, and I suppose most of our recipients probably most will just get one grant, but the importance of developing a relationship with the Cultural Trust, with our program manager, that they need to look at the website, and then people need to ring and start that, to ask questions, perhaps, you know, to listen to the answers. Claire Rimmer, who is somewhere here, who I can't see, but there she's waving. She is the Program Manager for the Cultural Trust, and tomorrow with Deborah Morgan from Maya Foundation, they'll be talking about what makes a good application. But if people are interested, they should talk to Claire and Deborah. But yes, it is that developing a relationship. And the other thing is, we always ask for examples of people's work on a CD or DVD, and so often the quality is so poor that, you know, instead of perhaps sending in something that has, you know, exceptional quality, and that lets them down too.
I was astonished when we were talking backstage before this session, Father Arthur, that you said that you have never had an application from regional Australia.
Never.
So
nobody's ever written me, rung me up, or bailed me up.
Well, we're going to change that here today.
I have no doubt the regions are oozing with talent.
We'll be opening this session for questions at the end, and I'm sure that that many people will want to talk to you and follow that up, Father Arthur. Janet, I wanted to ask you, we're seeing something interesting that's happening in the area of philanthropy, I think, with the emergence of the first generation of female philanthropists who have made their own money, often, or who have taken on establishing foundations as a result of the prosperity that has come to them through marriage or other associations. And I'm just wondering whether you have seen a trend where women give differently, and whether women perhaps are more inclined to focus on the individual than on institutions.
Look, I think that's probably a fair comment. I think perhaps women do. Well, I think it's probably easier too if you're the individual philanthropist. rather than an organisation like, with the Potter Foundation, where we fund organisations. But yes, I think there is a different approach, and I think that's coloured probably by their experiences of life. And I mean, what always amazes me and fascinates me is what makes a person a philanthropist? What makes a person want to give back to the community, and what makes them have this generosity of spirit? Because there are a lot of people in our society who have a lot of money and would never think of giving back. And even talking to Glen earlier, where he was saying later, once he's established, and because he's received so much, he wants to give back. And I think it's often people that they might see what their parents have done and they want to do the same. But I think perhaps some of the female philanthropists do perhaps take a great interest in the arts and perhaps in things like health. But yes, there is a slight difference.
Glen, did you notice that? Was there any sort of gender demarcation in terms of the support that you got in the community?
Well, I think so. I mean, because in the end, a lot of my individual donors, are female retirees, So yeah, I think that is, and they feel a little bit like a grandmother to me, actually. And while I'm on the topic of individual donors, actually, this is what I wanted to mention. Because there's such a lack of foundations directly supporting individuals, one of the other major avenues that I found is a facility ran by the Australia Business Arts Foundation called the Australia Cultural Fund. And this is a facility that allows individuals to receive tax-deductible donations from anyone, that's from individuals or even some foundations which can't normally give grants to individuals, but you can do it through the Australia Cultural Fund. And the way it works, you first register with the fund, you send them all their details, they have a chat about you, find out about you, show that you're all bona fide, and then once that happens, they give you a special donation form, and you have to go out and get donors, and they donate to the Australia Cultural Fund, and then the Australia Cultural Fund basically works such that they then give the funds to you as a grant. And that, in the end, has been a huge help, and it's actually been about 70% of all my funding for the Royal Academy. So that's really a very important fund that everyone, I think, for individual artists, should look at.
To what extent do any of you think that new technology offers a way that is more effective, more efficient, particularly to overcome, say, the tyranny of distance in terms of matchmaking potential artists with potential donors? I mean, it seems to me that sometimes you might live in a community and not be aware that there is an artist living within your area who could do with some support, some support that you might be able to give in terms of say, excess capacity, where you have a spare room that could be a studio. There are all sorts of ways of supporting an artist, but that maybe the connections haven't been made before, and now I'm imagining that things like the internet can put people in touch more effectively. Is that something that any of you have observed as being effective?
Well, I've started to try doing things online, because I've got my own MySpace and things like that, and I've had because the Australia Cultural Fund, they actually have all the artists who are registered with the fund, a profile on their website and a donation button, so people can donate online. But in all my donations, which has obviously been a lot, there's been none through the website, so I think it's been a little bit difficult. I think it's an area which might develop. I think it's more just a tool that you can use, but I find that personal approach, personally, visiting people is the best way to do it. Some of the things I've done with relationships with donors have been, playing bark to them while they. There's a couple who are visual artists, and they've been supportive of me, and I was playing bark to them while they were drawing sketches of me, and that's just, it's one of the things to really connect, and that's what speaks the most. So online is a bit of a, yeah.
Karen, can I just say, I mean, we're not quite doing that, but one of the things we want to start at the Cultural Trust, because now that we have over 1,000 artists who have been supported, is to start an alumnus of Cultural Trust recipients, and to really have it as something that's active, so that people can perhaps talk to each other or see what each other have done. And I'm hoping that now that we've been, the Cultural Trust has been going 17 years, that some of our earlier recipients might be interested in mentoring the people coming up.